Mhm. Is there anybody here? Saw that someone had joined. Maybe not. I'm gonna wait 5 minutes. Let's see what else can I do while or maybe I will just start with the lecture. Okay. So I'm going to start with the lecture, and then if anyone shows up, we can maybe pause it for a second to answer some questions. And before I actually do the lecture formally, I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure of the lecture and how it relates to the class and everything like that. So the lecture I'm doing right now is also still part of Unit 1. I did yesterday, I did a lecture on the first part. I did the Paleolithic to Neolithic historical lecture that covers the art historical information for Unit 1. I also did a new version of the intro lecture that just introduces you to the whole course. And now, today, I'm going to do this lecture on the existential impulse, and then also the lecture in this afternoon on what am I going to on drawing. I'm just talking about different kinds of drawing and things we need to know about drawing. So each unit, we have some art historical content, some what's called art and media content, meaning, art disciplines or art traditions can be divided up into like drawing, painting, sculpture, architecture. So each unit we cover one of those. Ah, we have one person in. Let's see. Okay. All right. Can everyone, I see that you're all on mute. If everyone could unmute for a second, um, just to let me know that you hear me. Is it Kyria?
It's Kiaria.
Yaria? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to correct me on pronunciation multiple times. I do not mind. And then Markeisha? Markeisha,
Yes, it's Markeisha.
okay, excellent. So if you, I've actually just started the lecture, so we can kind of go back to the beginning if you want. Do you have any questions for me before we get started?
No. The assignments that I see in Canvas, are those due like this week?
Okay, yes, let's see. Homework A and reaction A, right, which are like the very first kind of icebreaker assignments, those are due on Friday. And then unit 1 is going to be due on Sunday. Okay, so does that make sense? And this is all if if we go with it being a a 5 week course. Obviously, if we switch to it being a 10 week course, the homework assignments get spread out a little bit more. But essentially, the way I do the course, as a 5 week course, we cover about 2 units per week, and so every Sunday 1 unit will be due, and then every Thursday another unit will be due again and again, like that. Um, and yeah, so that's the basic structure. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, the good news is nothing is due right now or tomorrow. Um, you have, but you should be getting to work in terms of like the reading and looking over the notes and watching the videos. So there are videos for every unit that those can be found under pages, but I'm also in the process of going to be re-recording many of those videos, like what I'm going to be doing right now in this lecture. And so, like if you come to a lecture where I do the whole making a mark existential impulse lecture, then you don't have to watch that video because you already did it in person with me, right? Um, but you do want to make sure that you've kind of scanned your videos as much as possible. And you can watch them on 1.5 speed. I am not insulted by that. Okay, so any other questions? Have both of you acquired a textbook yet?
Not yet. I'm getting mine today.
Okay, because I
Not yet. I gotta look over it.
I heard from the student that they had a problem with the at the bookstore, so I need to call the bookstore to see how I can fix that problem. And the basic structure is that you can buy. You have basically you should have three ways of buying a textbook. You can go to the bookstore and get the book physically. They should have some physical copies because I asked for that. You could electronically, through the bookstore, get an electronic version of the book. And that might be the part where I might have done something wrong. I need to fix that. And then the last part is you could you could buy from a separate vendor. You could buy the eighth edition for very cheap. And I give everyone those options because it just kind of depends. Like those people who are on W Books or who are on different kind of plans, you might have reasons why you definitely have to buy an electronic book or you have to get it through the bookstore. And then other people are much more like, I have to get it from as cheap a source as possible. And what else did I want to say about? Oh, but either way, there is no panic. Like if you can't get your book right away, I have PDFs for the first three units already built into the modules, so you can do the readings that way. Okay, does that
Okay.
explain everything?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so if we are ready, we can start the lecture. So at the beginning, what I was actually doing was I was just explaining kind of the structure of each unit. Each unit has an art historical lecture where I talk about some art time period. Each unit has an art medium that I discuss, so like drawing, painting, sculpture, architecture, those kinds of things. And then based off of those, each unit also has a design concept that we cover, or maybe multiple design concepts. And then each unit also has a theme that we talk about. And for the themes, I call all the themes art impulses. And I have a reason for that. Basically, that because these are less about what people try to say with art and more why people make art, if that makes sense. The reasons people make art, which relates to what they try to say with art, but is like slightly different. So this lecture is the art impulse lecture so the thematic lecture for Unit 1. And in it, the main point I'm trying to make is that one of the most fundamental, both things that people say with art, and one of the most fundamental reasons why people make art is to say, I'm here, right? To make something that makes a mark, literally, that lets people know I was here, I am here, right? And so in this lecture, we're going to be looking both at like Paleolithic cave art, and we're going to be looking at a lot of graffiti, but we're also going to be looking at a lot of what painting from the abstract expressionist school. So, um, any questions about any of that?
No.
Okay, well, let's make basic sense. Now, one of the things I will say, hold on, I need to get back on the slide. One thing I will say so there's these different kinds of lectures, and clearly the art historical lectures and the art medium lectures, there's a lot more testable material in those, right? There's a lot more things that you need to study and memorize in the test than in the lectures that are on like the themes like this. But that doesn't mean that these thematic lectures are less important. These are where a lot of the really big kind of ideas that we discuss about art really kind of come out. And so, yeah, like if you're desperately trying to catch up, I totally understand watching all of the art historical and the art medium videos ahead of a test really quickly, but try not to skip the other lectures because they do matter. And especially also the design lectures really do help you when it comes to doing some of your art assignments and the design sketches specifically. Okay, so on this first page, I start with this Chauvet handprint. So this lecture is designed like if we were doing this in class in person, this lecture would be happening after we'd already had the art historical lecture. So you would have already been introduced to Paleolithic art and introduced to Chauvet Cave, which is one of the main Paleolithic art sites. It's a cave in France. And in that cave, there are all kinds of paintings. But one of the most interesting kinds of paintings are these handprints where the artist, the way that handprint is made, right, is they had like basically something like a straw full of red powder, right, like the red oxide kind of chalk that they would make from grinding stones. And then they would gather it up as a powder, put it in this pouch that they could then blow, right, like you would blow from a straw. Then they put a bunch of like some glue or something wet on the surface of the wall. Then they put their hand on the wall, right? And then they blow at their hand. And so everywhere that their hand isn't picks up the red dust, right? And then we get this outline of the hand. Does that make sense? Either one of you?
Yes,
Yes,
that makes sense.
Okay, all right. So so one of the interesting things about this particular handprint, right? Like in Chauvet Cave, there is a couple of places, and especially one wall, where there are like handprints of hundreds of people, just handprint, walls covered with it. But there are also some other places where handprints exist in Chauvet Cave, and some places where only a single handprint is. And this particular handprint is interesting because this person, if you look kind of carefully, it's pretty clear that this person broke their finger at some point in their life, right? And so that their first finger, their pointer finger, is broken and it's slightly bent at a weird angle. And that makes a strange, like a slightly strange shape to that handprint. And what's also interesting is that this person, who we can identify as a single person, right? We don't know who they are. We have no idea what their name was. But this person made their handprint multiple places in the cave. And we can see, oh, it's that same handprint. It's that same person here and here. So in a way, this is the very first example of a work of art where it's made by a particular person that we know it was made by that specific person and not just a random person. Now, we only know so much about it. The only thing we know about this person is they broke their finger, but we do know that it's that particular person. And so that leads to this interesting idea of what one of the main points of art is to do just that, is to just let people know that you were here, that you were, and that we made a mark. Um, so I'm also pairing these Chauvet paintings with like some contemporary paintings that are somewhat similar, right? So here we have Susan Rothenberg. Both cases, actually, they're Susan Rothenberg paintings. Susan Rothenberg is she's still alive. She's getting on though. She's a contemporary painter who I greatly admire and has just a beautiful hand painting surface. And so we're comparing Susan Rothenberg with this painting from Chauvet Cave, which is a Paleolithic. And by Paleolithic, I mean it is very, very, very old, right? 38,000 BCE is a very long time ago. Like, um, we went from us to the ancient Egyptians, right? We'd have to multiply that by um, by 7 times to get to 38,000 BCE, right? Like there's between us and like the old kingdom, ancient Egyptians, there's 5,000 years. And then, but Chauvet Cave is more like, is 40,000 years ago, right? Does that make sense? So it's like 8 times longer than that. So that's pretty amazing. Okay, so anyway, getting back to the topic, which is making a mark. So in this lecture, I'm showing you a number of artists where mark making, actually just how they put the mark down on paper, is a really important part of how they make their art and why they make their art. And so in this case, we're looking at both Cy Twombly and Bryce Marden, two artists that I greatly admire. And then that also leads us to a discussion about graffiti. And so here, mostly just giving you kind of like highlights of some greats from the history of graffiti. So like Dondi, I don't think Dondi is still making works. I go all the way back to Taki 183, which is one of the first taggers in Brooklyn in New York City. And this is from like the late 70s, early 80s. And so, but if we're going to talk about graffiti, we need to kind of define some terms. And so there is, some testable material here. First of all, knowing what the difference between the word graffito, sgraffito, and graffiti are all in Italian. They're all mean slightly different things. So in Italian, graffiti just is the plural of graffito, which is just the word for writing. But in English today, we use graffiti specifically to mean like that, illegal tagging and that kind of stuff. All right. And so then in the graffiti world, the people who make this stuff, they have like different terms for different levels of what they do. Like a tag is a very simple mark and it's just your whatever the letters are for your tag. Um, and a throw up is something a little bit more elaborate, where is a piece is really, really, you know, like a fully blown, like you're basically trying to make almost like a mural out of your tag. Um, and street art is a completely separate thing. And some street artists get a little bit embarrassed when people call them graffiti artists, and some graffiti artists get very, very mad when people call uh, street artists like Banksy, they call them graffiti artists, uh, just because they share one thing in common, which is that sometimes they put things on walls illegally, but beyond that, there's very different kind of culture and aesthetic. So here's some more contemporary graffiti artists I greatly admire. Saber is amazing. And here are some that are kind of like more pushing the boundaries of like what is graffiti versus what is kind of like street art, what is influenced by illustration, what's influenced by mural painting, what's influenced by um, graphic design and postmodernism. And then that leads to street art. Now, Banksy is not the only street artist in the world. And like Aina here, a German street artist, I think is pretty amazing. That vandalism piece is fantastic. So we're talking about that kind of impulse to want to make just to make a mark, to make a statement, right? To be able to say, I was here, I did something. And we see that kind of that interest also in other kinds of studio art. So like here in this self-portrait by Kathy Hollowitz, right? Notice how, I mean, this is a self-portrait. It's a portrait of herself that she's drawing. And in the portrait, she is drawing, right? Which I like that about the self-portrait. But the thing I really love is the way she blocked in the value of her dark shirt, running across her arm across to her chest, all in this kind of one continuous, super loose mark, right? It's just boom, boom, boom. She didn't try to fill it in carefully. And that feel of like how this mark can be like is exactly the kind of mark that would be made from that charcoal that she's holding in her hand, is really nice and very expressive. Someone like Tapias, a Spanish artist, also like he literally makes these pieces that kind of feel like old crumbling walls, but then have these enigmatic graffitis on them. Remember that graffiti, before it became an American kind of culture thing, it was much more of a, just scratch a sentence on a wall kind of thing. And this goes back very anciently. We have ancient Roman examples of people, in bathrooms scratching on walls and saying rude things. And so this interest in expression and in mark making also leads to us talking about abstract expressionism, which was an art movement in the mid-century, 20th century in America. So starting in around 1945, 1946, and really blossoms in the 50s in America. And all these people like de Kooning and Pollock and Rothko all become quite famous for time almost household names. And they're all, the one thing that they all share in common is this idea of like that painting should be about the mark making, it should be about showing your hand, and should be about expression. So someone like Motherwell here, and here's a little study by Motherwell. I love this painting right here, the Elegy to the Spanish Republic. We will see that painting many times. It will show up on tests. Just want to let you know. But I love this little study as well because it really shows how much like the idea of a loose expressive mark, how important that was to these abstract expressionists art. But then we have someone who came later, um, Roy Lichtenstein was part of a separate movement called like the pop art movement, which was this much more intellectual kind of movement where they're looking at the abstract expressionists and they're saying that, you know, that was overblown. And so what Lichtenstein is literally doing is he's making a painting that is mimicking these big, broad gestures, right, of a loose expressive mark, but it's not a loose expressive mark. It is literally it's painted almost like it was printed, right? It's painted like it's a loose expressive mark as it would appear in a comic book page. So it is like the opposite of loose and expressive. Um, and lastly, I want to talk just a little bit about Jenny Holzer. This is another piece that might show up on quizzes and tests, definitely in as a possible extra credit. And um, and I really love this piece. I love Jenny Holzer's work, and I think it's a good example of how um, that impulse to just to make a mark in the world doesn't have to be like a physical thing of like I have to draw on something. Like the way we think about it when we're kids, right? That desire to want to just take a crayon and just walk up to the wall and draw on it. But that impulse can be done in other ways. And in this particular way, Jenny Holzer, she just rented out the marquee to a movie theater and just used it as a chance to write these kind of aphorisms, these statements that are very ambiguous, very hard to figure out, but are definitely not the titles of movies that are going to be showing at that movie theater. Anyway, this is the last piece. This is from 1980s. Last piece, I think, in this lecture. So there's another lecture where we talk a little bit more about mark making, and then there's finally another lecture on line, I think. Yep. Oh, this line. So, but we don't have to do that lecture right now. So, do either of you have any questions?
No.
No questions whatsoever. And it could be about the lecture. It could be about other parts of Unit 1. It could be about any part of the course. I do not have a problem with answering anything. Um, any questions? Have both of you looked at the homework for homework Unit 1?
Yeah, I looked at it.
Yeah, me too.
So if we're not able to print it off, is there any way we could just like write down the answers on a piece of paper and number it and then send that in?
Yeah, there you can do it multiple ways. So you can download the document, right? And then you could fill it out digitally. You could download the document, print it out, and then write your information on it. You can actually do it just as a text entry. So like you can go to assignments and look at for homework 1 and then just type it in directly there. But also you could just look at the document on a screen or like on your phone and then on a separate piece of paper. Just make sure that you number everything and like write part 1, 1, 2, 3, then part 2, 1, 2, 3, so that I know which questions you're answering. And oh, we have a new person. Lakura, can you hear me? And did I pronounce that correctly? She's coming in soon. Is it Lakura or Lacura? Or something completely different? Well, anyway, getting back to that question about
Lacora. I'm sorry.
Lakura. Okay, no problem. All right. Welcome and nice to see you. And actually, that does remind me. Make sure that everyone on any time that I do a Zoom, make sure that you sign in. Like just write in the chat, "I'm here," and this way, because then when when I'm done, right, it'll make a video, but it also makes a log for me of all the chat. and then I can just quickly check that as basically to see who attended each week. Everyone just needs to attend one Zoom meeting per week, and then I'm going to be hosting about 6, maybe more Zoom meetings per week. And so you just need to attend one, but certainly any more that you attend also will, benefit you because there'll be lots that can be covered and you can ask questions, but also, um, any Zoom meeting, any extra Zoom meetings you attend will count as extra credit. Okay. So did I answer the question about the homework assignment?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
I didn't hear the question for the homework assignment. I was late. I'm sorry, I'm at work.
Yeah, so the question about the homework assignment was like the different ways that you could submit, right? Like could you just because some people don't have the ability to print out the homework assignment. And so you don't have to print out the homework assignment because under assignments, there is an option to just do it via text where you just type it in into the assignment and answer it that way. And that is totally fine. Is also you could download the document and then type into the document, right? Without printing it out, just type into the document directly and then send it back. If you do it that way, like make sure to change the file name, like put your last name into the file name so that I know it's that you're submitting it. Just makes things a little bit easier. Or you could print it out and then write your answers by hand and then photograph it with your phone and send it to me. But that depends on you being able to print out. But you could also, you could just look at the assignment, have a blank piece of paper and just write down the answers and then take a photograph of that. The only thing I ask is if you do that, make sure that you write like which questions you're answering, right? So write part 1 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then part 2, then however number that many, and then part 3, so that I know, which questions you're answering. Okay. Um, Anything else?
So I've been having trouble with like getting my books and everything. Is there like a particular book for this class?
Okay, right. I got that the question was primarily about the book. So here's when we did discuss that at the start. I think you were the one who initially sent me the email about the fact that you had a problem with getting your book. And so after this lecture, I'm going to try and call the bookstore and see if I can resolve it. I think on the issue of the electronic book, that's probably my fault, and I'll just see what I need to do to fix that. But they should, because I looked at the email chain. They should have physical copies at the bookstore as well. And like, because they said that they were going to. That was my request, that they both have electronic versions available and physical versions available. Now you can also you can go and skip the whole buying it from the bookstore route and go with the 8th edition because you can get that used very cheap from other vendors. But some people need to do the W book system. You're already in the system, or some people have other reasons why they need to use a bookstore. So I want to make sure that it's easy for those people as well. But in the meantime, have no fear that you won't fall behind because you can find for the first 3 units, you can find the readings available for the first 3 units from the 8th edition, all as a PDF, and they're in the modules. So like when you look there's usually multiple modules for unit 1 and multiple modules for unit 2. I'm not exactly sure where the readings are in those modules, but they're either in the first set of documents or in the one with the PowerPoints. Although actually there might be a separate whole folder just for readings. And either way, there are those readings available. And part of it is because some of the readings are from completely separate sources. They're these kind of like supplementary readings, and those I have to provide you the PDFs because there's no other way for you to get them. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, so the homework assignment, is that the mini discussion 1A covering units 1 and 2? Is that what you're referring to?
No. Okay, so homework 1 Which,
Oh, you say summer 25 beside it?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Homework number one. So like every unit will have basically three main assignments. A homework assignment, which is pretty easy. I think it should take you like 30 minutes to an hour, hopefully not more than that,
Okay.
to do a homework assignment where it's mostly kind of fill in the blank and mostly and then matching, and then some essay questions. And let me say that there are some questions that are specifically from the reading, but the vast majority of questions are from my lectures. So watching the lectures first is probably the best thing to do. And also having your notes. I provide you with notes for every lecture, as well as then a separate document called the discussion of the notes, where I kind of in paragraph form talk about some of the main issues. Having especially the notes right there in front of you um, will help you to kind of like find the answers to those questions kind of quickly. And
Okay.
so then there's the homework assignment, and that's worth 30 points. And then there's two other assignments for each unit, and those are where you make some kind of art. So there's a and there are two kinds. There's one that's called the art assignment for unit one. So unit one, art assignment one, and then unit one, design sketch one. The main difference is that the art assignment is always trying to trying to introduce you to the different mediums that we're talking about. So like when we're doing drawing, the art assignment is drawing based. When we're doing ceramics, the art assignment is related to ceramics. Not actually doing ceramics, but like you work with Play-Doh to make some stuff. And when we do sculpture, it's sculpture based, right? Whereas the design sketches are always drawn and they're more about the design concepts that we talk about in class. And they're trying to get you to kind of demonstrate your understanding of those design concepts.
Okay.
Okay. Does that make more sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And you can, if you look at the structure, if you go to like assignments, you can kind of see it there where like there's um, there's a reading and a video, and both of those are just these little short kind of essays where you just basically prove to me that you have, A, done the reading, and B, watched the videos, right? And then the next thing is the homework assignment. Then the next thing after that is the art assignment, and the next thing after that is the design sketch, and then we go on to the next unit, and so everything is kind of staggered that way. All right. That was a good question. Any other questions?
No, I don't have any more questions.
Okay. So the next meeting, let's see, it's about 11:30 right now. The next meeting is going to be set at 12:30, and that one is just going to be an open answer question session. So if unless something really occurs to you between now and then, you are certainly free to skip that. Um, and um, and then after that, at 1 o'clock, I'm going to do, or 1:30, I'm going to do another um, Zoom. This time, that Zoom will be on the topic of drawing, and I'm going to go through like just talking about different kinds of drawings, stuff like that. I'm just going to do the whole drawing lecture entirely. But once again, anytime I'm doing a lecture, and I'll make it clear which ones are Zoom sessions that are answer question sessions and which ones are lecture sections. But even when I'm doing a lecture for a Zoom, the first 10 minutes can be devoted to answering questions, and then the last 10 minutes, or however long we want, really, until we run into the next meeting, can be devoted to answering questions as well. Okay.
Will you have any pre-recorded, like if we aren't able to make it, like will we be able to find it, like YouTube or something?
Yes, very good question. So all of my videos have already been recorded multiple times. And so you can find the videos for each of these things, like each of the lectures, under pages. If you go to pages, you'll find them there. But you can also find them. The class has its own YouTube page, and I can actually show it to you if you want. I'm still on share screen. Let's escape. Come on, escape and minimize. And let's go to, well, maybe we can. Here we go. Let's go to YouTube. Oh, and I'm on my channel. Okay. Let's go to my channel. So I have a number of different YouTube channels, one for just my studio classes and one for a junior seminar class. And this one is just for the art appreciation class. And so you can just watch all the videos here. So like here's unit one, and here's unit two, and it breaks it down into parts. The main benefit um, of doing it this way is that you get alternate things that can possibly help you with studying, depending on how you learn and stuff. Like so, to give you an example, let's take um, let's take drawing. Okay, so
Okay.
okay, here's over here. You can see the playlist. I should have just look at playlist, right? And so it's got my lectures. The very first two videos are my lectures, right? Because it's not a long lecture. Each one of these, I think, is about 8 minutes. How long is this? Yep, about 9. Probably the next part was about 8 minutes. But then the whole rest of this playlist is from other creators. And they're basically just videos on demonstrations. Some of them are from me, right? Like here's a video of me doing a demo in class.
Back, and this is the second set of demo lectures for Drawing 1 class.
All right, so there I'm just doing a demo on doing a continuous contour line drawing, and talking about blind contour line and stuff like that. Wow, there are a lot of mine here. But there's also demos from other people. Let's see if I can find the one that I'm looking for. Yeah, I think it's this one. All right, so this is not me. This is some other creator. And that's not even my favorite one. Where is the one? There's one that I liked that had terrible music. But all right, terrible music. But
Before I begin to draw.
oh, that's a completely different one. But that it kind of explains blind contour a little bit more. So on each of these, so like these can help you to understand some topics. A lot of these are just short kind of definitions, such as um, let's take a definition of like, yeah, silver point, which is a term that will show
Silver
up.
point. Silver point is a drawing technique in which artists use a thin silver wire or stylus to create images and was popular during the Italian Renaissance.
So there you go. You get the definition, you get some images. And so silver point's a question that's going to show up probably on quizzes and tests throughout the class. It's just because it's an interesting one out of the lecture on drawing. And so, like I said, this playlist gives you like all of those kind of things. So for those kind of people where you maybe learn better from watching videos and you find like watching this kind of thing helps you study better, helps you learn better, then that's great. It's a source for you. Other people might just watch the two from me and just ignore the rest. And so you can watch those. Like these two are available on Canvas, right? Like you just go to the Canvas page and they're right there. And by they're under pages. Does everyone know where pages is in Canvas? Let's see if I can find. I had it over here.
Yes. Pages from Canvas.
Yeah, so here under pages, there's just a whole list. So introductions, these are the videos that basically just explain the course. And then we have unit 1 videos, and they're laid out on a page. And you can just watch them small here, or if you want to, expand them, you can. And thing I like about this is that you can do this at your convenience. I tend to watch videos like this, or rather listen to videos like this, like when I'm washing dishes and cleaning house and stuff like that, or when I'm in the studio and I'm working. I like to have things on that kind of engage that part of my brain. And so here are the two lectures on drawing, right? Part 1 and part 2. Okay, and so you can get to them either way. Did that answer your question about? And I will also say that every one of the ones that I'm doing this semester, when I'm recording them via Zoom, I'm also going to upload them, which probably means I need to make sure that everyone agrees to being uploaded onto YouTube, and then I will send out the links to people so that you can watch them, um, watch the specific ones that I'm recording. Because I will make slight adjustments, like changes periodically. That's one of the reasons why I'm recording all new ones, is because things have changed. Sometimes my opinions have changed, but sometimes, like archaeology has changed, or art history research has changed, and so things need to be adjusted. Okay, that was a good question. Any other questions? Nobody? Are we all still there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we're still, no questions for me.
no questions. So, well then we can end it here. That's fine. And usually all of my sessions are reserved for an hour, but if need be, I can set some to go longer. And like I said, there'll be another one at 12:30, and just let me, and then there'll be one at 1:30. The 1:30 one is where I'm going to actually do the lecture on drawing, and then there'll be an evening one as well at 7:30. And my goal is to try, if at all possible, to meet with, have at least everyone show up to at least one session today, so that I get to meet everyone and make sure we're all on the same page. And has everyone responded to the questions that I sent in? I think all of you have. Let me look again. Yeah, I think all of you have. And hopefully everyone else will soon, so that we can have a definite decision and I can let the registrar know. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, well then we're going to end it here. And once again, it was very nice meeting you all for the first time. And yeah, I will see you in all the future Zooms, and just message me, on Canvas, or attend a Zoom if you have any questions, and I will try my best to answer them.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. See you later.
Bye.